Hey, what's going on, Fantasy Flavor podcast listeners and YouTube viewers? What's up? My name's Dylan. I'm joined here with Trenton. How you doing, Trenton?
I'm doing great.
So
I don't
not
know how
could
I be.
not could join us today, unfortunately. He's all right though. Don't worry about him. So today we're gonna be kind of doing another like week two talk, I guess. We have two segments lined up for you today. It's gonna be a little bit shorter due to time constraints, but I hope you stick with us. So let's start it off with our first segment named Injury Index. Yeah, let us know if you have a better name for that, please.
That's the big talking point of that's not even the big talking point. That is week 2.
Yeah, it's a really good point to make. Yeah, week 2 was hell. I think I had like 4 players from one of my teams get injured in the same week. It was crazy too because some of the injuries came like after the games, like Julio's and Jalen Rager's. But we'll break that all down, so stay tuned. I think the biggest one though has to be Saquon, right?
For sure.
I mean,
It's him. It's him and CMC are the two big names that everybody talks about as running back position. CMC went down too, but he's only out for a few weeks. So I feel like Saquon being out for the year is a much bigger issue, especially considering that the Giants, with what talent they have now, they have some decent talent on offense, decent talent on defense. They're in a weak division. This is the time for them to push for the playoffs if they were going to. So with Saquon going down, I feel like that totally ruins their chances. That's disastrous for them. Whereas with the Panthers, they're more in that trying to tank state. I mean, they're still going to go out there and be competitive with CMC, but they're definitely looking like a team that's more and more trying to go out there and get a high pick in next year's draft, because they're definitely not going to compete in their division right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think Saquon, I guess we're kind of talking about them both. I just want to talk about Saquon here. Saquon's definitely, the reason why he's first here is because it's the biggest injury. There's a couple other ACLs like Cortland Sutton, but it's also the position he plays, right? I mean, we've seen these running backs, it takes a whole year. It's great that it's early in the year, sure, but Darius Geis and Dalvin Cook also suffered from ACLs. And what happened the year after? They both got injured some point during the season. And I know Darius Geis obviously more injury prone. Dalvin Cook, we can have that conversation. But Saquon struggled with ankle injuries and stuff in college too. He's never been fully healthy necessarily either. So
right.
I think this is, in Dynasty, it's really big, honestly, because it's going to be this whole year you don't have Saquon, your superstar player. And then next year, I don't want to guarantee it, but I feel like he's going to be hobbled at some point during the season with some type of injury, just because the ACL, it's hard to come back from that. So it's a really big injury.
Absolutely.
I did my rankings today, and I moved him down to Dynasty RB5, but I might move him down even more, to be honest. Just thinking through that logic, you know what I mean? If he's gonna be half there next year and not here at all, if you're a contender, I don't know. You should.
I definitely feel though. Did I lose you?
No. Can you hear me? And we're back. So what were you saying, T-Dog?
So I'd have to say right now, though, I mean, sure, Saquon bumps down a little bit in Dynasty rankings. He's definitely dropping. Definitely hurts his long-term outlook a little bit, but he still is, when he gets back to full health, he still is an elite running back. So I feel like this is the perfect time. If you can go out there and get him for cheap, you should definitely look at that, as long as you're not in a contending state. If you are a rebuilding team, definitely reach out to whoever you can about getting Saquon, because that is an amazing long-term asset. Doesn't matter how much you give up, like draft picks. Like, you can give up a first and a decent player right now to get Saquon back next year and the following year at full health. I mean, that's just a huge shift for you. That really will help your rebuilding team.
Yeah, Saquon, I remember as a rookie in at least 17 weeks format, which no one plays, but he finishes the RB1 as a rookie. So that's just incredible. It shows you how good he can be. And he looked kind of bad running the ball, at least versus Pittsburgh. But I don't know.
Hopefully, I feel like that was the Pittsburgh defense, and the
definitely.
Giants' offensive line was trash too.
Yeah, we've seen similar performances from like Zeke versus the Denver Broncos, I think 2 or 3 years ago. I remember he had 10 rushing yards on like 20 attempts. So, shit happens.
So something interesting moving to CMC again.
Yeah, sure.
I think something to watch for with him is who's actually going to take over that backfield role. Because I feel like the most interesting name, people are all talking about the running backs on the roster that they have. I really feel like they could move Curtis Samuel back into the backfield. He played running back in college. He's still a decent size, so he could fit back there. And out of everybody on the roster that could possibly come out of the backfield, he is the closest, if not equal, thing you're going to get to McCaffrey as a receiver out of the backfield. So he's definitely a name to keep an eye on for me. I feel like his volume could go up. He was definitely capped because he was stuck behind DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, who are both having amazing starts to the season. But if he does transition to the backfield as a pass catcher and still run some routes at wide receiver, I feel like he definitely has some sneaky upside. That's a name to keep an eye on for me.
Sure, I like that a lot. Very creative. I do think Mike Davis is probably more realistically the guy you go to here with CMC. With CMC's injury, the interesting thing to me is, remember, Alvin Kamara suffered from a high ankle sprain last season too, and once he came back from injury, he was way less efficient. Touches were a little bit down. I think we could say the same thing for CMC. I mean, both are really good, right? I mean, if you want to say CMC's better, fine, no problem with that. But they're both really good, right? You can't. So yeah. I think it's an injury that, at least he's healthy, unlike Saquon, who can't play this year. But he's going to be hobbled, I think, this season at least towards the second half. And I hope I'm wrong.
It's definitely a possibility. It's definitely a possibility that he is hobbled. However, I do think that once he returns, maybe give him a week or two, but he's going to be handling a full workload again, because I really don't see them wanting to have even a 70% healthy McCaffrey ceding touches to Mike Davis. I mean, I just think that even at 70%, McCaffrey should clearly be a workhorse back in that backfield. So, I mean, they could hold him out to hope he doesn't get injured further. So it's something to keep an eye on. But I do feel like he is so far and away the best back they have on the roster that when he does return, he's going to get volume.
Yeah, definitely a volume play. I will say Camaro is obviously splitting touches more, just naturally as the Saints do. So definitely volume. But if the efficiency's down, maybe it's worth selling him in like a redraft league for a player similar like Zeke. If the efficiency's going to be down, that's a big deal. Let's move on here to our next player, Michael Thomas. I mean, I believe this happened. Was it last week? It did happen last week. The only one that we're talking about that didn't happen. That's because it was Monday night, I believe. No, that wasn't Monday night, excuse me. But it was just, we never talked about it much in the pod. So seems like it's going to be a while. I mean, I'm not as concerned but I'd be more concerned, honestly, the fact that the Saints look kind of bad on offense. I'm not as high on the Raiders as some people, but they look kind of bad versus the Raiders. So Michael Thomas is a huge part of why they look good, but I don't know. Right. I bold prediction. I think this could be the year Drew Brees falls off that cliff. We've been talking about it with Brady, but maybe Brady outlasts Drew Brees, or maybe they both go the same year. But Drew Brees just looks bad.
They both are, honestly, both of them are struggling this season. I feel like this could be potentially, I mean, depending on how they look out towards the end of the season, how it all shapes up, this could be the last year we see both Brady and Brees. I mean, this could be their year they were both retire and be in a hell of a Hall of Fame class. But I mean, it's possible because they're both regressed a ton. And they both have backup plans somewhat in place. I feel like
the Bucks don't really.
Kind of. I mean, yeah, it's tough to say, but I feel like it's definitely in the best interest of both teams almost to move on. Unless you want to keep them around to go for, hopefully get them one last ring or something, then you're going to want to go with a young new quarterback, because both these teams have trended in recent years to a lot more youth. I mean, sure, the Bucks this offseason got every old player they possibly could on their roster. But when you look at the core of the team from past seasons, it's been mostly a young group. You look at the wide receiver room in Tampa. You have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Both, I believe, are under 27 years old. You look at New Orleans. You have Mike Thomas, who's under 27 years old. I think he's either 27 or under that. But you're looking at more youth movements on those teams. So I feel like this could be the season that both of them make their way out. And that in the long term, making my way back to Mike Thomas, that could be good or bad for him. I really don't know. Like, say the Saints decide to move on from Breeze after this season, but they still make the playoffs. Who are they going to get to be the quarterback that's going to help Michael Thomas? I mean, he is a talented wide receiver, but his overall ceiling could be a lot lower without Breeze that we've seen in past years. So, yeah. I mean, it's something to keep an eye on.
Really good point. They both regress in different ways. I feel like Brady's kind of playing a little bit Jameis-y. He's still thrown some actually really good balls, in my opinion. There's a few like Chris Godwin in week 1, and Mike Evans, he had that 50-yard bomb. Breeze looks like Manning, though, with that noodle arm, which is good for Michael Thomas because he is a slant master. I'm kind of kidding. Yeah. He's more of an intermediate guy. But I think those two will be interesting to watch. But we should move on here because, we've strayed from Michael Thomas. Another really big injury, though, is Courtland Sutton. I feel like both of you guys were lower on Courtland Sutton than I was, which is fair. It was kind of hard to hate Courtland Sutton considering he put up like 1,100 yards at 23, was it? That's actually really impressive. But, ACL's big. I mean, let's Jerry Jeudy be the alpha of this offense, which is good and bad. I guess it's bad because, he was in the slot and he was kind of, not getting much attention. But he never played anyways with Courtland Sutton, except, I believe, some of week 2. And, Jerry Jeudy struggled with some drops, but he's looked overall like a really solid player, especially out running. But Courtland Sutton, it's obviously big just because of the fact that he's out a whole year. And the same thing I said with Saquon, excuse me. Now, Cooper Kupp did suffer his own ACL, and he came back and he killed it. He absolutely killed it that year. But, so maybe wide receiver is a little bit different, but definitely stock down for Courtland Sutton. I don't have much to say. It's another ACL, really bad.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what you just said. And I'm going to do what I did a little bit earlier. I'm going to add a name to keep an eye on, like a lesser known name. You want to look at KJ Hamler for the Broncos because he came back in week 2 and looked really, really good. And I mean, so he's a name that potentially with Courtland Sutton out, he could be after Jerry Jeudy, he could be the number 2 wide receiver on that depth chart and get some decent volume. However, we'll talk about him a little bit later, but Drew Lock is also injured. So, I mean, the whole offense is going to be very, very questionable for the next few weeks. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? It's something to watch. But as of right now, I mean, I'm kind of wary of honestly starting anybody on that offense in fantasy just because of what's happening.
Yeah, let's just talk about Drew Lock right now. Let's not beat around the bush. Sure, let's mix up the order a little bit. I mean, Drew Lock being out for I can't remember the timeline exactly. I think it's around a month-ish.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
So that's plus or minus that a little bit, but it's a big deal because I believe who came in for them, the quarterback looked good, right? But Driscoll even looked kind of alright in the Bengals, but it was just kind of the fact that it removes that superstar ceiling me and you thought Drew Lock could have.
Right.
I remember we were both like, Drew Lock has a lot of upside with all those weapons, and part of that was just Drew Lock having this cannon of an arm, right? Not this.
And Drew Lock did underwhelm to start the season.
True.
So, I mean, there is a little bit of question there. We definitely thought he was going to be a lot better than he started, but it's possible that it is definitely a downgrade to Driscoll. I mean, Driscoll, honestly, it's also possible that it could be an upgrade. I mean, Driscoll did look pretty good in relief for Drew Lock this past week. So, I mean, well, I'm waiting to see what happens this week. If Driscoll shows out again, I mean, sure, it's something to watch. I mean, it's something that is very interesting. Maybe you'll look to check around the league, see if any of the Broncos offensive players are available. It all lays on how Jeff Driscoll performs this week, though. If he shows out again, then the Broncos offense might be fine. If not, they are screwed until Drew Lock returns, maybe even further if he does return and doesn't perform like he started the season.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Drew Lock, it's kind of also important because if the Broncos start off like 0-5, 0-6 or whatever, are they talking about drafting another quarterback? You know, they drafted Drew Lock in the second round. They took Noah Fant over him. Maybe they like love Fant to death or something, but we know how important it is for teams to take their quarterbacks and how they'll sometimes say, screw BPA, we got to get our guy. And the Broncos haven't had their guy since John Elway. I mean, I guess you have those few years of Peyton Manning, but I mean, like, drafted their guy, if that makes sense.
But they didn't draft Elway.
Oh, that's
Elway
true.
forced a trade from the Colts to the Broncos.
I mean, can you blame them?
Yes, but yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I feel like there's only two teams in the league, maybe I don't know, 3, maybe 4, I don't know, but there's only 3 or 4 teams in the league where you can confidently go into this offseason, and if they have the number 1 pick in the draft for whatever reason, they won't take Trevor Lawrence. I feel like every other team in the league would take Trevor Lawrence with the number 1 overall pick. Those teams being the Chiefs and Ravens, obviously. And then probably I'd go with the Cardinals because he's looked good, and the Seahawks because Russell Wilson is on an absolute tear this season. Yeah, I mean, sure, there's some other quarterbacks that are performing well, like Josh Allen. Dak Prescott has looked good for a while. And there's some veterans. There's some veterans like Cam Newton. There's Matt Ryan. Those guys they could stay there. But say any of those teams lands the number 1 overall pick, I feel like there has to be a discussion, at least among the team personnel. Do we take Trevor Lawrence? So it's definitely something to keep an eye on if the Broncos land the number 1 pick.
Yeah, answer is yes. Even if I'm the Chiefs, for Christ's sakes, I might just take them anyways to make sure no one else has them. You know what I mean? Let's say Mahomes goes down or something. You know what I mean? Just take the BPA if that's your BPA.
Pull the Packers.
Yeah, stash
it. Take your quarterback of the future while you still have multiple years of your current quarterback.
Yeah. Jeez. Definitely a lesser name here, but he actually started the season off good, and I'm sure you're really sad as a Colts fan. Paris Campbell already suffered with injuries his rookie year, now goes down with an ACL, I believe, himself. So many ACLs this week. It looks like Philip Rivers liked them a lot. I guess T.Y. Hilton's okay. Mo Alley Cox, my man. Trenton mentioned him here on this podcast. I picked him up in a league. He didn't even know he was there, and he put up 100 fucking yards for me. My man, Mo Alley Cox. I mean, that's the only guy I want in this offense. Okay, obviously I want Ty2 and Jonathan Taylor. Rivers in Superflex because he's a starting QB. But, I mean, I don't really have any interest in Pittman, to be honest. At least in like in redraft Dynasty, you know, I'm a little lower, but hasn't been there.
And with Pittman, it's going to be interesting because our Colts still do have Zach Pascal. So he's right now has that wide receiver 2 role, and Pittman is slotted as the wide receiver 3 on the roster. However, you did see Pittman get a lot of playtime late, and he looked pretty good out there in week 2. So I feel like maybe they could transition to moving him along faster, get him out there more. Ty is obviously the top wide receiver, but through 2 weeks, he's very, very much underperformed. He's dropped multiple passes. One of them would have been a wide open touchdown. I feel like there's definitely I love Ty to death. The ghost, but I mean, how can you stick with that man as your wide receiver one if he continues to drop touchdown passes and do stuff like that? I feel like there is definitely potential for Pittman to move into the wide receiver one role as early as later this season. And that'd be something to keep an eye on because he does have that talent. But Paris Campbell going down definitely hurts because going into the start of the season, I felt like through the first 2 weeks, he was starting to replace Hilton. He was becoming their deep threat, their guy that they want to run slants over the middle and explode out and go take slants to the house and stuff like that. That's what Hilton used to be. I feel like Paris Campbell was slowly transitioning into that role, taking some snaps away from TY. But with that out, there still is TY there. But it's going to be a risk because he has underperformed. So Pittman is a guy to keep an eye on. But with Campbell out, that's definitely a big hit for this offense.
Yeah, offense was kind of looking a little anyway, so they smacked the crap out of the Vikings. So there's that. I don't know. You said everything I want to say. Let's move on. Raheem Mostert. I mean, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, he was actually really balling this season. You know, people were lower than him. Mm-hmm. I remember we talked about him or Sony, and we took Sony. Oops. But other than that, I mean, Raheem Mostert's killing it. So good for him until he got injured, obviously. And how long was the injury again? I forget.
I cannot remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, look it up while I give analysis. The analysis is going to be a fucking running back by committee, you dumbasses. It's Kyle Shanahan. Okay. I mean, I could have said that more politely, but it's true. I mean, come on, it's fucking Kyle Shanahan. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to freaking bring in JaMychal Hasty. He's going to be their workhorse. Jerick McKinnon? No, they're going to run a committee. But Jerick McKinnon is probably the top dog. I still think Tevin Coleman's struggling with injuries. That might be one you can look up here too for us, but it's an interesting backfield considering they don't have Jimmy G. It removes the ceiling, but Nick Mullins looks like like the most decent backup of all time. So you know what I mean. You know what I mean. He's like a bus ride, nice and relaxed until people come up to you.
And Mostert's out at least for this week, maybe next week. Tevin Coleman's also out for multiple weeks. So I feel like it definitely is Jerick McKinnon's backfield right now, just because of the question marks surrounding every other running back on the roster. Like I feel like, if I'm not mistaken, like the next few running backs on the roster are undrafted free agents, like JaMychal Hasty and those names, who are all good running backs. I love them as talents, but I mean, they're undrafted free agents. Are you going, unless your name is James Robinson, are you going to want to hand off that many touches to an undrafted free agent over a guy who's proven himself in the past, like Jerick McKinnon?
I don't know.
And McKinnon did blow up last week. Let's be honest with ourselves. He looked really good.
McKinnon did look good.
I mean, maybe they want to keep it with Shanahan, keep it as a mixed backfield, but with the questions behind McKinnon, maybe he gets a big role this week, and at least until Mostert comes back. So I don't know what more to say there.
Sure, fair point. I think it's going to be a committee. I mean, we've seen Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert was an undrafted free agent. I don't think they give a shit where you're drafted. Kind of like Pete Carroll. You know what I mean? Like, he likes his committees. The next injury is Cam Akers. This one is interesting to me because it's a rib injury, I believe. I've heard up to 6 weeks. I've also heard he could be back in like 1 or 2. I don't think he's playing this week. This obviously sucks because not only did he start, he finally got the start we wanted over Malcolm Brown already. Even though Malcolm Brown completely outballed him in week 1, he also gets the first 3 carries and gets injured, and actually was more efficient on those 3 carries than anything like the week 1. So it really sucked because we're all kind of higher on these rookie backs. You're obviously a little lower, but Cam Akers, I believe you were kind of a fan, so.
Yeah, I do like Cam Akers. He's a good, talented running back. I just, Malcolm, it's I don't know what to think about the Rams backfield because week 1 was the Malcolm Brown show with a sprinkle of, or like some Cam Akers and a little sprinkle of Darrell Henderson. And then in week 2, you had Cam Akers get injured early. So everyone was thinking, okay, they're just going to go right back and give the ball to him some more like they did in week 1. And no, they just said, screw it. It's Henderson's game. So, I mean, that backfield has question marks until Akers comes back, strictly because it's like the Patriots of the past few years. Who's going to get the touches? So, I mean, it could change game to game. Who knows? So it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, week 1, you look at it, I believe Malcolm Brown had about 20 touches. Cam Akers had about 14, and Henderson had about 1 or 2. That was pretty clear. I mean, it was clearly a 1A, 1B there in the Rams. Even Malcolm Brown balled out. Week 2, I mean, Cam Akers obviously got injured on the first drive after 3 carries. Malcolm Brown took a lot of the workload, and then he got injured, and that's when Henderson came in and blew up. So I think that offers a little bit of clarification. But the problem is, Darrell Henderson blew up, right? I mean, both in the receiving and the rushing game, he looked pretty good. So it's going to be a 1A, 1B. It's probably my assumption. It's just concerning if you're a Cam Akers fan, because Cam Akers, one of his appeals was the open backfield, and these guys are going to have even more time now to, kind of claim a spot in that backfield, make their case. Great way to say it. So, I don't know. Right now, honestly, I was kind of the Cam Akers guy out of the 3 of us, but I had to take a bet on which one of these rookie backs kind of would be like the one to like suck or bust. It might be Cam Akers right now or disappoint. I think disappoint's a better way to put it. My money's on Cam Akers, which sucks, but I still love Akers. I know you're a fan. Good talent. Sounding like the Akers, but you gotta be on the field, especially it's really important to integrate yourself. Maybe if one of those other guys get injured, Cam Akers show. We'll see. Next guy, Juju. I didn't know this until it came up on my phone about 20 minutes ago. He has a knee injury. Did not practice today. Deontay Johnson's beating him in targets. I don't really care about that because Juju's been fine this year. I guess it kind of ruins that upside. Remember when we all had him like our top 3 dynasty wide receivers? That was definitely a thing we were doing.
Right.
I mean, that kind of sucks. But he's been all right. Week 1, he looked pretty good. Week 2 was meh. But he's getting his workload in the slot outside. Obviously, knee injury's big. Deontay Johnson, we're going to talk about him later in the show, so I don't want to do that too much. Stock up. I don't know what to do with Juju, though. He played last week. I didn't see him get injured, so this is kind of confusing. But
And, I mean, this... I've done it twice before. I'm going to give another name who this helps.
Chase Claypool.
Chase Claypool, the beast. Man is a monster out there. Like he's this year's DK Metcalf, like the combine warrior, massive wide receiver. But, I mean, DK is obviously a better talent. I will give you that.
No,
Chase Claypool,
stop.
I mean...
He isn't DK Metcalf. He's fucking Calvin Johnson, like you said on the podcast. Stand behind your takes.
But he's that height, weight, speed freak, and I love him to death. He's a great wide receiver. I feel like this could open up an opportunity for him to get a decent bit of work and show off. I mean, last week he caught that deep touchdown, and I believe week 1 he might have caught a touchdown as well, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, he's definitely, compared to Deontay Johnson, James Washington, and Juju Smith-Schuster, you would want the 6'4", 6'5" guy catching the balls in the end zone over the guys who are 6 foot 6 or and below,
Nah, did they still have Ryan Switzer? They don't, but I'd give that guy all the red zone touches. You kidding me? White guy?
Yeah. But that really opens up an opportunity. Maybe he can show out, take some touches. So, it's going to be an interesting look if Juju does have to sit out for an extended period of time. Do they give Chase Claypool a lot of volume? Does he get the opportunity? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely interesting. I don't know much about the injury. I don't have much to add. Jalen Reagor, though, same injury as Drew Brees, which is interesting because he's a wide receiver and Drew Brees was quarterback. So they're a little different positions. So we don't have a timetable.
Slightly
different positions. I think 8 weeks, though, which is terrible for Reagor. As we all know, I love N'Keal Harry coming out of last year. What happened? N'Keal Harry got injured the first half of the season, and then the second half of the season, it was just kind of hard for him to get reacclimated into things. Now, Rager, honestly, these past 2 weeks has probably looked better than Harry looked his whole rookie year. Maybe. They're kind of close, especially that 50-yard bomb he had in week 1, though. It's probably better than any Harry play. But it's kind of concerning, right? I mean, we like year 1 production doesn't matter for wide receivers, but there is a certain like baseline you have to have. It's normally like 500-ish yards. Do you know what I mean? Like kind of getting acclimated, especially towards the second half of the year. Now, we've seen it with guys like Keenan Allen and OBJ, but the difference is they got injured and then came in later in the year. Rager may not be back till week 10, week 11. I don't know where their bye week is either. If the late bye week, that could be awful for the Eagles. So it really sucks because Rager, one of his appeals, like Cam Akers, was kind of these available touches, these available targets. And I think one of the things I'm learning, and I've been a big proprietor of it, but I don't think I'm taking it seriously as enough. Mainly because now it kind of, joked with me. Maybe talent does matter more. You know what I mean? Like these situations, I mean, these are injuries, right? So to be fair, these situations still exist, but you know what I mean? Maybe go with your guy. I think I've just been bit in the ass by injuries, though, to be honest. I mean, every single one of my guys has been fucking hurt this year. Do you have anything to say about Rager?
He did look really nice in the past 2 weeks. I mean, he had that deep 50-yard bomb in week 1, and then week 2 he also had a nice catch in traffic over the middle, caught the ball, got hit immediately real hard, still held on to it. He looked like a veteran receiver out there. He looked comfortable. So that's more than I can say for N'Keal Harry during his rookie year. N'Keal Harry kind of looked out of it. So, I mean, I feel like Jalen Rager definitely is going to be a little bit better overall. But, I mean, it definitely is the injury. We're going to have to wait and see. And with him out, I honestly don't know what if I want to do with anything on that offense other than the tight ends. I mean, that's...
And Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders.
Miles Sanders. I forgot Miles Sanders. But Miles Sanders and the tight ends on that offense, the tight ends volume was actually going to go up, I think, because Rager was not just a deep guy. He was the guy that you run routes over across the middle. So I feel like that's opening up opportunity for Dallas Goedert and
Zach Ertz.
Zach Ertz. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see, definitely. Next name on the list is Davante Adams. His was kind of interesting because it's a hamstring. I believe he was pulled from the game at one point, too. I don't think he played the whole game. I believe Julio played the whole game, and then this came out. I don't know if Adams played the whole game. But we can kind of talk about both of them because they're the exact same injury. So Davante Adams and Julio Jones. Both hamstrings, both I think happened. Honestly, maybe Julio's happened before the game because he didn't even start off the game hot. But the same time frame, right? I mean, both are a big deal because hamstrings linger. Hamstrings. I mean, they suck. ACLs for me, and then it's hamstrings. Because with hamstrings, you're going to re-aggravate it mid-game, so you're getting that dud performance in that game, then they're out for a few more weeks after. Because the re-injury rate in a season is very high for a hamstring. So, I don't know. I'm not necessarily saying selling. I mean, it just kind of stinks, because Julio.
Yeah. It's Adams. Going to be interesting. I mean, these guys were drafted in most leagues like within the first 2 rounds. Like it's like Saquon and McCaffrey and Michael Thomas. They're guys that you drafted highly and you expected to get points from. So it's kind of rough to see them go down, and we don't exactly know a time frame yet. So it'll be interesting to see when they come back and how they perform when they do. I feel like the Packers might be a little bit worse off overall in general as a team, because after Davante Adams, they have I don't even
Al
remember.
Lazard, Equanimeous St. Brown, Marquez Valdes-Scantling,
but not exactly inspiring names. I feel like the Falcons are a lot better off, because you look at the start of the year that Russell Gage and Calvin Ridley have been off to. It's absolutely insane. So I feel like there isn't much of a drop off from Julio Jones, especially considering you have two guys who have more targets overall on the season than even he does on his same team. So, I mean, sure, there's going to be a little bit of a drop off, but I feel like they still have a lot of talent to succeed, and both those guys could get even a little bit more volume until Julio returns.
Yeah, great point. Be interesting to see, or maybe Calvin Ridley will struggle with the new coverage now. Focus on him. He's never had that before. Fun to see. Last name's Jimmy G. We kind of already talked about before with Raheem Mostert. I mean, I don't know. Jimmy G, he was eyeing Superflex. I don't own much Jimmy G. Even as like a Pats fan, like it's like with Jimmy G. I think Nick Mullins will kind of come in and give you some more performances. Hopefully, you grab Nick Mullins as a Jimmy G owner in Superflex leagues. I mean, one QB, sure, I guess. But, I mean, I think the offense will actually run kind of similarly. Of course, George Kittle's also out, so I guess that opens up things more for, I don't know when Debo's supposed to come back, Dante Pettis.
That whole team just got ravaged by injuries.
Yeah, that's very true. I don't know what to think.
Like they've lost Nick Bosa, they've lost Solomon Thomas on defense, and then on offense they got Jimmy G, they got Mostert, they got Debo, they got everybody's out. It's in George Kittle. I mean, what? I mean, at this point, just give up. Go for the number one pick.
Has Brandon Ayuk been playing?
Your players. Do what?
Has Brandon Ayuk been playing? I haven't heard a single Brandon Ayuk chatter at all.
I think he played a little bit, but I don't think he really did that much. I don't remember. I honestly haven't been paying as close attention as I should to the 49ers, but
yeah, yeah, he had 2 catches for 21 yards last week. So I guess there's your alpha, the one most dynasty relevant wide receiver. They also have a Kendrick Bourne there too. So I don't know. Kendrick Bourne could be in your waiver wire, maybe worth a pickup if no one did. Let's move on here though to Tinder time. So this one will be pretty quick.
Everyone's favorite segment.
I know. So we have one super like, which means this is our favorite buy of this list. We have one, and we can buy and sell as many times as we want. So buy is to the right, sell is to the left. Are you ready to go, Trenton?
Let's go for it.
I'll let you go first, and I'll go after. Deontay Johnson.
I'm going to swipe left. I feel like Chase Claypool has shown enough. He's going to start taking more of a role. And Deontay Johnson's is number 2 in the league in targets. That's going to decrease. It's not going to be like that through the whole season.
If there's a neutral, I'd pick it, but I'll swipe right because I think it can continue success, especially with Juju out. This one is interesting. N'Keal Harry. What did you think?
It's tough because I really, really am not that big of a fan of the player. I think he's massively overrated. But he has performed really well. So maybe it could, my opinion could be shifting. For now, I'm still going to swipe left because I'm not that big of a fan of him yet. But if he keeps performing, I'm probably gonna have to switch that opinion.
Yeah, I mean it's all relative to ADP. I get it. You know, you don't like the player, but it comes at like a certain price. For me, I'll actually swipe left too. It was interesting because he actually looked really good when they're kind of forcing it down to the field to him. He was catching like everything, but they only kind of did that because they were trailing. And I was thinking about it the other day. I don't want him to take too long here, but he looks so explosive, like breaking tackles and stuff at Arizona State. And he just hasn't done that in the NFL, which is weird because we've seen other, wide receivers on that team like break tackles and do really well. So fascinating to me how he just kind of lost his, what I mean is like moxie a little bit, his ability to break tackles and run after the catch. So
definitely because of the injury, I think that injury in his rookie year.
Yeah, maybe.
He's kind of nervous, I think.
Maybe, yeah, that's actually a good point. I don't know. I think if he gets that back, he could actually become a buy. Because, or if they use him like they did at the end of the game, which is just deep routes and intermediate, because they don't do that, especially when they're in the lead. So, I'll sell too. Swipe left. Josh Allen.
I'm gonna swipe left for the third time in a row. I love Josh Allen to death, but I mean, he is at his ceiling right now. He's performing at his absolute ceiling. He's leading the league in passing yards. And I mean, I just don't see that continuing as much because he definitely isn't that accurate of a passer as he's shown. Like we've seen in the past, he's not that accurate as a passer, and he's just really performed really well through 2 weeks. I don't think he continues.
Yeah, he has faced the Jets and the Dolphins, which aren't the most aspiring teams. I know the Dolphins are supposed to have this better defense. Hasn't necessarily translated yet. I think Josh Allen can still be really good in fantasy, but he's one of my... Right. He could finish as a QB1 this year in fantasy at least, but I don't know. Like, I get it if you want to sell for maybe someone like a Russell Wilson, if someone wants to get a little younger, or Kyler Murray or Deshaun Watson. That's an interesting conversation. So I get it.
Right.
I'll also sell. I guess I'll swipe left for now. Calvin Ridley.
And there's my super leg. Love him to death. He's on pace right now. I know it's probably unsustainable. I know the second part of this is definitely unsustainable, but his yardage, he's on pace for 1,900 yards, and for touchdowns, he's on pace for 32. He's not going to get to 32, but I feel like there is a possibility he reaches 20. He could be the third wide receiver ever to reach 20. You look at I feel like that's possible because you look at where he's catching those touchdowns. 3 of his 4 touchdowns so far have come in the red zone. It's not like he's catching bombs and just taking them deep. They're not fluky touchdowns. They are touchdowns where he's being the one targeted a ton in the red zone. So he's definitely got that upside, and I feel like he'll keep scoring touchdowns. Could really blow up.
Yeah,
definitely. I think he definitely reaches 15.
That was okay. That might be a little too high for me. I'll go more like 14, 13. Anyways, that's gonna be my super like 2, but I'll buy it. I think he's this year's Chris Godwin, especially if Julio's gonna be out for a while, and maybe they'll come back with a hamstring. We talked about that earlier. He could be a target monster, and that's what matters in fantasy. Justin Herbert.
I think I'm going to. I might buy, honestly. I might, because I mean it's a rookie quarterback, so his value will be high, and he's coming off of a big week, so it'll be high still. But I feel like he is a perfect fit in an offense that's perfectly suited for a rookie quarterback, because you have all of those targets that love to run short. I've said it multiple times before in the podcast. You got all those short targets and all that intermediate volume and all that. So I feel like it's definitely going to be there, as long as if he performs again this week. I feel like he could cement his status for the rest of the season as the starter. I'm just there is a risk that Tyrod Taylor returns and takes the starting job. It's kind of obvious that Anthony Glenn really wants Taylor in there over Herbert for whatever reason. He hates Justin Herbert after drafting him, but I'm going to buy him because, I mean, what I saw in this past week is a rookie quarterback in his first ever start that maybe, if you look at it in a certain way, outperformed the highest paid quarterback in the league.
All right. Whew, that's kind of hot. I mean, I respect it. I'll actually swipe left. I'll sell here. And I think the only reason I'm saying it to sell is because if you can get Herbert for like a Tua swap right now with all this Herbert hype, I'd do that in a heartbeat. That's the only reason why. Because I feel like there's so much Herbert hype, and the kid balled out. I was obviously lower on Herbert. But when I kind of think about that, I feel like a lot of people would actually rather have Herbert than Tua right now, and I'm a big Tua guy. So that's the reason I'm selling. Because even a 1 QB or a super flex, I feel like that's a trade that I'd make all the time if I had Herbert shares. So that's how I feel about it. Just it's not hating the player. It's just kind of the value you can get. Aaron Jones.
I'm going to sell Aaron Jones. He's coming off an absolutely monster week, but I feel like this season still is Aaron Rodgers' revenge tour. I feel like that's what it's shaping up to be. He blew up in week 1, still looked decent last week. So it's going to be very hit or miss for big games from Aaron Jones. So I feel like this is the biggest or the most value he's going to get this season. So if you can sell him for a good chunk, go for it.
Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying. For me, I'm actually going to super like him though, because my one concern with Aaron Jones is never the talent. Now, I had some concerns about the touchdowns going down, touchdown regression, even though he was super efficient from there. I'm more concerned. I was concerned about the contract. They drafted AJ Dillon round 2, really good draft capital. That's near Akers, near Akers and Dobbins. That was like right next to him, like 5 to 6 picks later, 10 maybe at most. But H. Dillon's touched the field, which I don't necessarily care about, but he's balled the hell out. That's my super like. You know what I mean? How do they not pay him after this? Especially how much Aaron Rodgers likes him. And I normally agree with you selling after a performance like this, but I don't know how the hell he doesn't get a contract. And he doesn't get a contract. I don't know. They're crazy. Mr. Trubisky.
See, this is a very interesting one. I'm going to swipe right. I'm going to buy Trubisky. Because even after a great start to the season, you still see a lot of people out there that are saying, no, he's not going to keep performing. He's going to be bad. And his value, even after this start, is still relatively low. So I feel like you could buy him still decently cheap. And if he keeps performing, you could get a great value there. And if not, you bought him for cheap anyway. It's not really much of a loss.
Yeah, maybe I'd swipe right and like one quarterback, but super flex, I'd sell. I'd swipe left just because I feel like you're investing too much into Trubisky. Although Trubisky isn't as valuable to have on one quarterback either, but I think he could put up decent fantasy numbers. I just don't see him as a quarterback of the future. I don't know. I feel like Chicago's a shit show. Sorry to say it. All Chicago sports except maybe baseball and maybe hockey. I'm not a big hockey fan. I don't know. But, like NBA, NFL, both teams are shit shows right now. So, Trubisky. I'd sell him probably in most cases. Joshua Kelly.
It's another tough one. Tough one. But I'm going to swipe left. I'm going to sell him because he has looked really good. He has gotten the red zone volume. But Austin Eckler has also looked really, really good. And you look at the efficiency. Joshua Kelly has gotten volume, but his efficiency has not been there. Aside from the one massive catch he had last week, everything else was short gains and stuff like that. He's not going to get that. I mean, volume is decent, but I don't think he gets that 25 touches a game again. It's just not going to happen. They're going to give Austin Eckler the ball as much as they can. And they should give him the ball as much as they can. I don't know why they're not giving him as much as they can. But they're both getting decent volume. They're both good players. I just think that you might want to sell now because the efficiency isn't there. If his volume starts to drop, it's all going to tank his value.
I'll swipe right because I think he can be Walmart brand Melvin Gordon for like half the price. And that's actually a decent value. I know you like Eckler a lot, but I think Josh Kelly gets the goal line touches, and I don't think this offense is going to be like high powered. But I'll take, you know what I mean? It's a goal line back who's actually getting a few catches a game and getting. It's all relative to ADP. I'll buy into Josh Kelly. I always thought he could be one of those guys who could break out. Darrell Henderson.
I'm going to swipe left again. I'm going to sell. I feel like he does have a clear path to a role for the next few weeks. But Cam Akers, it's still going to be his backfield once he comes back. And the Malcolm Brown has also looked really good in that backfield. So even, I don't know, it's a guy, he had a good week last week, but I feel like if Malcolm Brown is out this week, with Cam Akers also out, if they feed Darrell Henderson and he gets a good score, you might want to sell him as soon as the week is over because I don't think he sees that again.
I liked Henderson as a talent, but he got his production after 2 injuries, so that kind of says it. I'm going to sell. I'm going to swipe left as well. Final guy here on the list, Noah Fant.
See, it was between Calvin Ridley and Fant for my super like, so I'm just going to have to buy normally. But so far he has looked really good. He's gotten 4 catches in one game, 5 catches in the other, scored in each, put up decent yardage in each. So I feel like he's definitely looking really good so far, and it's tough. I want to kind of sell, like at the same time as I want to super like. I want to kind of sell because Drew Lock is out, but I feel like Driscoll honestly is the type of quarterback that goes for the tight ends the most. So I feel like he's one of those tight end heavy target quarterbacks. So he's going to get that volume still, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm a swipe right. I'm a buy Noah fan. He's definitely a super like contender for me too. I think he's competing with rookie weapons, and Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler can be good, but rookie wide receiver production typically isn't there immediately, especially early in the season. So I feel like he can get a lot of the targets, and maybe Drew Lock comes back, and then those wide receivers get more acclimated, but there's more offense to be had. So
absolutely,
I'm totally into Noah Fant. He was so good his rookie season. Him and Hawk, they're compared all the time. Who cares? Both are going to be freaking great. And with that being said, we're all out of time here for the Fantasy Flavor podcast. Trent, do you have any final words?
I do not. Have a great rest of your week. Stay safe, stay healthy, have great fantasy football luck.
Yeah, please. Half my team got injured in one of my main leagues. So please have fucking luck. And remember to wear your masks. And I'm going to let the outro take us out. Have a good one, everyone. Peace.